New kind of point of view. So at the beginning of July, during extremely hot spell, there's a young man left his closet. So that's what we start with. So Raskolnikov. So Raskolnikov in the 1860s is in the same world as Fathers and Sons. So if you read any of Fathers and Sons, you're right back in the same world. And this world is filled with talk of nihilism. So this is the famous revolutionary in St. Petersburg, contemporary to Dostoevsky, both in college and then after in prison. Nechayev was a very famous figure because he wrote a book called Catechism of a Revolutionary. And so that book then could be used by everybody ever afterward to refer to, talk about revolutionaries in Russia in 1860s or so. Now, since Turgenev is also going to make this a big subject of his novels, you have two of the greatest Russian novelists both interested in this subject in the 60s and the 70s. And in case of Dostoevsky, up to Brothers Karamazov, which is 81. So up to the 80s. And you must all wonder why. Why is Russia so full of these revolutionaries? Well, it's fairly simple. It's because Russia is filled with Western stuff and Western ideas, thanks to Peter and Catherine the Great. Yet the progress has stopped at a certain point and has not gone past that point. So that what you have then in the 19th century is a fairly well-connected society, especially St. Petersburg, very well connected to Europe and to Paris and to London and to the Scandinavian cities, but stopped in its progress towards a modern, anything like a democratic society. So this creates a very hot, churning, revolutionary literature, propaganda, the formation of revolutionary groups, and assassinations. There are going to be assassinations from here on in because, of course, the feelings of people are so radical. It's easy to radicalize an 18-year-old in the college, and that's what they're going to do. Nechayev says the revolutionary despises public opinion. He despises and hates the existing social morality. For him, morality is everything which contributes to the triumph of the revolution. Immoral, criminal, everything that stands in its way. So there's a clue to Raskolnikov. You can do anything. You can do anything if it advances revolution. Nechayev is an introduction for all of us to Russian nihilism, and I've already said things about it when we read Turgenev, but we can just remind all of ourselves that Russian nihilism is a little different than the way we think of that word now, because now when we think about it, we automatically think of Nietzsche, and we think of all the different things he wrote about the nihilists, and then the 20th century looking back. But the Russian nihilist was essentially what we get in Fathers and Sons. It's a revolutionary movement that will do anything to advance the revolution. That's all. Just you'll do anything to advance the revolution. The movement arose from a generation of young radicals, disillusioned with social reformers, for a good reason. Nothing had happened. There'd been no change. There'd been no improvement. Kropotkin defined it, nihilism, as the struggle against all forms of tyranny, hypocrisy, artificiality. Well, that's just revolution. That's just rebellion. That's the same you get in the French Revolution in 1789. So there's more to it, more to Russian nihilism than just revolution. They, of course, reject the Russian Orthodox Church, so that puts them in a certain part of Russian opinion. They're going to attempt to assassinate the czars and succeed in doing it in 1881. And so this is the revolutionary line inside of Russia that he knows all about. See, he's been exposed to all this, Dostoevsky. He's heard all this when he's a student before he goes off to prison, and so he knows exactly what they're saying, and they've been saying it all the way through. He's writing in 1866. They're still saying the same things. So it's not surprising that when he writes his books, the nihilists don't like what he writes and reject it and say, oh, no, this isn't it. This isn't it. But it is. It is. And he is giving us a view into Russian revolutionary thinking in the third quarter of the 19th century better than anything else, better than their own publications. So Crime and Punishment is a novel of ideas. It's a novel about political ideas. And I say that it's kind of prophecy. It's prophetic. It takes the nihilist circle, it takes all their ideas, it puts it into a person, Raskolnikov, and then it says, let's push these ideas to their logical conclusion, and then let's analyze what happens to someone who does that. That's what it is. Now, if you finish the novel, you know the novel tells you that it's not good for the person who does this. That's the prophecy. That's the prophetic look into the 20th century. It's saying, he's saying, and he's thinking that way, incidentally. He's thinking way far beyond just 1866. And he's thinking that if these ideas circulate, then we're going to create movements in the 20th century that will be horrendous. So you all know that. Everybody knows the level, the degree of the killing that took place, much of it intentional. So this is a prophetic novel. It's looking into our time and saying, here's someone, here's his story. This is what happens to the individual under the pressures of this story. So here's Raskolnikov. First name, Rodion, lots of nicknames that they'll use. Rody, in our English translation, lots of times his mother or sister will call him Rody, so that would just be a nickname. So he is the protagonist of our novel. He is the one at the center, 23-year-old man, former student at the University of St. Petersburg, now poor, no money, although living, off of all the different ways that you might be able to do it, including he has a mother and a sister who are helping him or will help him. He's described exceptionally handsome, above the average in height, slim, well-built, beautiful dark eyes, dark brown hair. Well, now that's enough to make you like him, right? Dual personality, I don't think that's exactly the word I'd use, but certainly there's a two-sided to him. There's the cold, the antisocial, often gruff, grim, and then the one that's very warm, very charming, very compassionate. And we see it in the novel. We see him go from one side to the other. His name, you've probably all read this in some note somewhere, but it's just nice to know it. The name comes from the Russian word for Raskolnik, meaning schismatic, to break away from. And that's Dostoevsky's very clever way of sort of alerting us to the fact that he's special, he's a breakaway, he's not the ordinary kid, he's not like everybody else. And the Raskolniks were a religious group that broke away when the Russian Orthodox Church tried to update its ritual a little bit, not very big, in way back in Peter the Great's time. And they broke away and they went off into the far country and set up churches all around Russia with quite a number of adherents, and so it'd be like the breakaways in the Roman Catholic Church still using Latin, of which there are almost none left since they've hunted them down, but like that. So they're the Raskolniks, they're the breakaways, and what Dostoevsky wants to say is, this is a guy who is somehow special. He's different than the rest, and Nietzsche will write directly based on Dostoevsky and the nihilists in Russia. He knows exactly what he's talking about. Very familiar with Dostoevsky's work. So, Joseph Frank said that he's created to exemplify all the dangerous hazards contained in the high ideals of the Russian revolutionaries. So just like Bazarov in Fathers and Sons, the moral, psychological traits of his character incorporate this split between instinctive kindness, sympathy, pity on the one hand, and on the other hand, proud, idealistic egoism that has become perverted into contemptuous disdain for everybody else. That's Bazarov. We saw that. That's Bazarov. He's contemptuous of practically everybody except his friend Arkady. So right in the beginning, we see contempt, coldness. He's better than everybody else. So here we are. Meet the star of Crime and Punishment, good-looking ex-student, dressed in rags. He's thinking of doing something really, really bad. Talking to himself, doesn't think he's really capable of doing it. Still, he's actually doing a practice run as we speak. Gets to the pawnbroker's house. Her name is Alyona. She's a mean old lady, lives with her half-sister Elizaveta, mentally challenged, but a sweet person. Okay, so that's our setup. One of the things that you probably already noticed is how time expands, contracts as you read the novel. Did you notice that, Rita? Could you tell how sometimes pages and pages and pages go on, and then you find out nothing's happened? I mean, it's like 5 minutes later, and yet, well, that's another aspect. Time in the novel. These great innovators in the second half of the 19th century, Dostoevsky, Flaubert, Tolstoy, all of them are fascinated with time in life and time in the novel. And by the 20th century, people like Virginia Woolf will grab a hold of it and make that their whole theme. We're out in the city, we're going among the streets, we're meeting people coming back, and he goes into a tavern, sits down for a drink, and a man in the bar comes over, talks to him, and his name is Marmeladov. He's an unemployed drunk, and he spews out his story to Raskolnikov. Marmeladov's married to Katerina. Katerina has 3 kids from previous marriage. Marmeladov has an 18-year-old daughter, Sonia, our second great heroine in our book. Since Marmeladov is a drunk, money is tight, Katerina has sent Sonia out selling sex for money. So now Sonia lives by herself because other people in the building don't want her around. So the Marmeladovs, I don't know how you reacted when Marmeladov came on the scene, but I kept thinking, could we get rid of this guy? Could we get rid of this guy, Joan? What's Marmeladov in the story for? Why is he? Well, this is the way that we can show Raskolnikov's kindness and generosity. So this whole Marmeladov family and their crises, which are going to go on and on and on, is going to call forth from him unbelievable kindness, unbelievable patience, unbelievable generosity. He's going to give them all his money at one point. He's going to give them everything he had so they can get through. So we have, within just a very short part of the book, a plan to kill somebody and all this generosity to this drunk who comes up to him in the bar. So now we have our hero in 2 parts. We have the 2 different people. And then, of course, there's the daughter, Sonia. So Sonia becomes very, very important in the story, right to the very end of the story, because she is the fallen woman, the child, Marmeladov's daughter, and she is going to spend a lot of time with Raskolnikov, talk to him, and she will be the first person he confesses his crime to. So this puts her in a very special category. She's someone who's listening to him and is going to help him come back from his horror. So goes back to his room, he goes to sleep. When he wakes up, he gets a letter from his mother, Pulcheria. From the letter, he learns that his sister Dunya is free from her job, and so now she's thinking about marrying Luzhin, Luzhin, who Raskolnikov considers an idiot, but it will, of course, give his sister income and stability and everything. They want to move to St. Petersburg, and they think that Luzhin can help Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov, of course, is furious about this. This is the last thing he wants. Goes to sleep. When he wakes up, now he's rethinking everything. Now he's not so sure, doesn't think he can do it. Then he goes for a walk, sees the sister of the pawnbroker lady in the marketplace, learns that she won't be there, which is good, because then if he wants to do the bad deed, he'll be able to do it without anybody else around. Goes to the place, intent on killing, he does it, but Lizaveta is there, comes in, and so he has to kill her too. Now the whole thing has changed. Now at this point, everything has changed. This is not a philosophical murder. This is just an impulse the moment the person comes in. So the whole thing makes him sick. Has a terrible fever, lays in his room for a week. People come and bring him soup. His good friend Razumikin is trying to help him. His landlady brings him foods, and he's almost dead. It makes him sick. Terrible thing he's done makes him sick. Of course it makes him sick. It should make him sick. So Razumikin. Now here's a second great person in the book, along with Sonia. Here's the other good person, completely good, will help Raskolnikov again and again and again, will help Sonia, will help the mother, and eventually he's going to marry the sister. Razumikin means reason in Russia. So he's signaling that in all the variety of philosophy that's mushing up his head, that this good friend, this solid friend, this clear-thinking friend is a source of reason and stability and kindness in his instability. And that's right. He gets up, he goes out from his fever, he recovers, he starts to feel better, he goes out into the street, and he happens on a traffic accident where Marmeladov's been hit by a carriage, knocked into the street. He's drunk, he's been run over. So Raskolnikov intervenes, he gets people to help him carry the man back. Here's the goodness in his soul, all within hours. Murder, kindness. Mother and sister. Mother, Pulcheria, and Dunya, her nickname is Dunya, have to be in the story. The family has to be there. He, of course, loves them both, but they always stand for kindness, goodness, proper morality, proper behavior, and therefore what he's done, he knows, will be a horror if they ever find out. So therefore that ups the ante in this drama. Now it ups the ante to horror and fear that they'd ever find out. And so his now continuing for the rest of the book, fears about the revelation will be accented by his mother and his sister being in the story. So they're in St. Petersburg. They're there. Luzhin wants to marry her. He will appear too at a point, and Raskolnikov will practically throw him out. Razumikin is, of course, secretly in love with Dunya. We can pretty much tell that. Sister is Dunya. Mother will, of course, suffer with this horror that's about to take place and be unraveled.